WWE's Clash at the Castle can only be described, in my opinion, with one word. Absolutely fantastic. What's up, everybody? It is Flamin' Ricky DeRays, right here on the Wrestle Havoc podcast with my WWE Clash at the Castle 2022 review. Of course, it is the first time actually in 30 years, that WWE returned to the UK for a show with this magnitude with Clash at the Castle, and I got my review and my thoughts right here on the Wrestle Havoc podcast. So I've stated earlier that Clash at the Castle can only be described with one word, and that was fantastic. And the reason why I say that is because of the fans that were in attendance in Cardiff, Wales. Overall, man, the crowd was really what made this show so special. The fans in Cardiff showed everybody why they are basically they are considered the best fans in the entire world. A lot of people consider the UK fans to be the most passionate fans in wrestling. And I absolutely agree. The fans in Cardiff showed you why they are the most passionate fans in wrestling right now. They just are, because wrestling is a hot market in the UK. It was, and it still is, a hot market. But overall, you know, Clash at the Castle was an absolutely amazing show, in my opinion. I absolutely enjoyed the show. We had six matches on this card. Of course, All Out, which happened the next night, had 15 matches, and that is including the 0 hour on the entire show, which I understand why Tony Khan would stack the shows up with like 15 matches, is because of the fact that, of course, we're paying $50 for the show, and he really wants to give you the most bang for your buck. But again, when you're watching the pay-per-view live, and especially for the people in attendance, you are going to get them, you know, really tired when they're watching the show. Like, I remember watching Double or Nothing, and I was like, dude, there are some matches on this card that realistically do not need to be on this pay-per-view. They should be on a Dynamite. And All Out really wasn't that, because All Out, in my opinion, was actually was actually much better than Double or Nothing, in my opinion. Like, really, out of all the pay-per-views, Revolution, Double or Nothing, Forbidden Door, and All Out, I thought, realistically, you know, the weakest out of all four of those pay-per-views was definitely Double or Nothing. I'm not saying Double or Nothing was a bad show, because I thought Double or Nothing was a good show. But out of the four pay-per-views that we got this year from AEW, I felt like Double or Nothing was the weakest out of all four. But again, WWE with Clash at the Castle focused more on quality over quantity. They definitely knew what they were doing with all the matches that they were booking. Now, granted, there was a couple of things that I did not like of the show, and realistically, the main thing was Drew McIntyre not winning the Undisputed Universal Championship from Roman Reigns. I'm going to give you guys my thoughts on that and who should be Roman Reigns for that Universal title. I got it all right here on the Clash at the Castle review. But before I get on with all of this craziness, make sure to like and subscribe to the Wrestle Havoc podcast right here on YouTube, in which we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content. And as the frickin' referee would say, ring that damn bell for more notifications. Also, the Wrestle Havoc podcast is available on audio platforms. It is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, and Google Podcasts. So if you guys want to check out the Wrestle Havoc podcast in audio format, it is available on all of those platforms, and the link will be in the description below. So let's talk about Clash at the Castle. As I've stated earlier, there were 6 matches on this card, and we'll not waste any more time. But, you know, actually, we will waste a little more time, actually, because there's one thing that, you know, I didn't give my thoughts on yet, and that is, of course, Triple H taking over for WWE Creative. Of course, Triple H, as you guys know, took over the reins over Vince McMahon after, you know, the Wall Street Journal leaked a lot of stuff on Vince McMahon and wrote articles about him, which led to Vince McMahon actually, you know, resigning. And he's no longer in charge of the creative ends and realistically the business ends of WWE, because Nick Khan and Stephanie McMahon are now at the helm. And Triple H is now the new head of creative. That's literally what everybody has wanted. But what are my thoughts on Triple H taking over WWE? I think it is a good thing for WWE Creative as a whole. Now, granted, WWE can be literally at its worst state and still, you know, be in business. It's been proven for years now. We all know Vince McMahon and Bruce Pritchard and his entire team did not know what in the living hell they were doing when it came to the main roster. I thought main roster television in 2019, 2020, last year, man, Raw in 2022 or 21, I should say, was in its absolute worst state. It was probably one of the worst, wrestling TV I have ever seen in my entire life. And, it really went to show you that Vince McMahon was completely out of touch. And, they did improve a little bit this year, when Vince McMahon was still in charge. But again, they were still out of touch. And it was about time that Vince McMahon stepped down and Triple H would take over. Now, granted, without Vince McMahon, we probably wouldn't be here right now. But at the same time, there's a time limit to everything. And Vince McMahon, of course, he's in deep shit right now, but also at the same time, it was time for him to go. Now, Triple H taking over creative is a good thing for WWE as a whole, because as someone that I did not watch a lot of the Black and Gold NXT, I was never really the biggest follower of it, but from what I have seen, Triple H is very creative with all of the talent that he worked with. Of course, he worked with guys like Adam Cole, Johnny Gargano, Tommaso Ciampa, all of those guys that were in NXT, right? And he really realistically made them stars. Now, is he going to do a lot of the same shit that he did in NXT on the main roster? Most likely, yes, but at the same time, the main roster is a different audience. Now, there is a way to implement that NXT flavor into the main roster, and he will do it. But some of the things that Triple H has, changed when it came to WWE television is really the first reason is the shows are flowing much more better. And what I mean by the shows are flowing much more better is they're flowing, more of the point. And this is primarily the case with Raw, because Raw, when you're watching Raw, especially now, usually they'll have a match that would open the show or a segment that would open the show that would lead into a match. And already by that, when that segment would end, it would already be like around 8:45. So like the show flows really quick. But another thing is that they're putting more focus on their championships. Championships feel more important. Like, for example, the United States Championship. These people, Triple H's team they really know how to make championships important. If you watched, the first Raw when he took over, they did a whole video package on the United States Championship and the lineage of the United States Championship. Look at what they did with Sheamus versus Gunther on this show for the Intercontinental Championship. The IC Championship primarily right now is more important than it ever was under Vince McMahon. We have less rematches on this show. Everybody, on Twitter were complaining about rematches, including myself, because it was the same shit over and over and over again. And you had some people saying, oh, why are you complaining about getting rematches? It's because of the fact that we want something different almost every single week. Actually, no, we want something different every week. And giving us the same match over and over again doesn't make a show good. And that was one of the benefits that, AEW had over the WWE creatively, is that every week when you watch AEW Dynamite, you do not see rematches at all. The only times you would see rematches are for legit occasions and reasons as to why they actually need a rematch. For example, Hangman Page versus Bryan Danielson, those two matches that they had were absolutely fantastic, and it absolutely deserved a rematch because of how good the match was. WWE would literally give you a rematch on a match that you did not give a shit about whatsoever. I cannot reckon how many times we got the Street Profits versus Alpha Academy on Raw this year alone. It is absolutely ridiculous. But we had so many rematches on this show that Triple H immediately scrapped that. And, we have more importance on championships. We have a bunch of returns. Of course, we had the returns of Iyo Sky, Dakota Kai. Now they're partnered with Bayley when it comes to the new faction called Damage Control, which I think is fantastic. We also had the returns of Karrion Kross, Johnny Gargano. So basically, all of the people that WWE had released, Triple H is now bringing back. And that's another factor as to why, that is a really good thing for WWE, because keep in mind, when it comes to guys like Karrion Kross, when he first got called up, he was the NXT champion, and he got immediately buried by Jeff Hardy in less than, 5 minutes. It was absolutely ridiculous. Triple H is literally trying to scrape away all of the wrongdoings that Vince McMahon had done. Now, it's going to take time. It's literally going to take time for him to fix everything. Raw is still not perfect. SmackDown is still not perfect. But the improvements are there, and that is what everybody should keep in mind. The improvements are still there, and over time, it's going to get even better by the months once they pass. And once we head to WrestleMania season, that is when, it's actually going to go in full flames. But again, Clash at the Castle was a fantastic show. So as I've stated earlier, WWE was focusing more on quality over quantity, and that is exactly what they did with this show. In our first match of the evening, of course, we had the 6-woman tag team match with Bianca Belair, Alexa Bliss, and Asuka taking on Bayley, Dakota Kai, and Iyo Sky. Now, of course, if you guys do not recall, Dakota Kai and Iyo Sky, now they named her Iyo Sky, but it kind of makes sense considering her character. They, of course, returned at SummerSlam last month, and I thought that was a fantastic move for them to do, because them returning at SummerSlam immediately fixed the women's division in the WWE. It really did. And another thing is of course, they were a part of the Women's Tag Team Championship tournament, which I will give my thoughts on later on after I discuss this match, because I appreciate them trying to put more emphasis on the Women's Tag Team Championships, but at the same time, I felt like the Women's Tag Team Tournament really didn't do it for me, but again, I'll mention that later on. And of course, they have the Dakota Kai, Iyo Sky, and Bayley have this new faction called Damage Control, and I think that faction is working absolutely really good. Now, this match starts, right? And everybody in the stadium is singing Bayley's theme song. Well, not Bayley's theme song, but they're doing that, Bayley, ooh, I want to know if you can be my girl chant. That was absolutely fantastic. It goes to show you, again, these fans are the best fans in the entire world. So the match starts. Bayley goes for a cheap shot on one of Bianca's partners. At this point, Bianca retaliates. Then all the women brawl. Bayley and Bianca start. Dakota Kai and Iyo Sky take Bianca to the outside. Dakota and Sky then try to double suplex Alexa Bliss, but Asuka comes in. Both teams try to suplex one another, but the babyfaces proceed to hit a triple suplex on all of the heels. Bianca then goes for the moonsault on Iyo Sky. We get a cover and a near fall. At this point, the heels regroup on the outside. Alexa Bliss is the legal woman, but then Bayley tags in Iyo. Sky then blocks Alexa's kick, but then Alexa hits a slap. Then Iyo regains the advantage, but Alexa slows down and stomps her head down repeatedly. We get the double knees, by Alexa Bliss. We get a cover and a near fall. Sky goes for the waistlock, but then Alexa Bliss escapes. Bayley then makes the tag. She proceeds to work on Alexa and picks her up and drives her into the corner. Dakota makes the tag, but then drives her foot on Alexa. Bayley then tags back, and then Asuka makes the tag. Then Asuka and Alexa go for the right hand running bulldog combination. Then we get a kick by Asuka blocked by Bayley. At this point, Bayley regains control. And really, this was a common occurrence throughout the entire match. Every time when the fans would chant something about Bayley or sing Bayley's song, Bayley would just go immediately back to the apron and tag somebody else. That was one of my favorite things about the entire match. So good heel tactics. Even though Bayley was the most over woman in the entire match, I felt like Bayley definitely put her heel tactics fantastically well. So we get a waistlock by Asuka. Sky makes the tag. Bayley then sends Asuka into the corner, but Asuka hits the missile dropkick. Then Sky hits the shotgun dropkick when Asuka turns around. Asuka then hits a couple of strikes. Then Iyo Sky goes for the roll-up, and then we get a near fall. Sky goes for the back kick. Then Dakota makes the tag. Then after that, Dakota goes for the takedown on Asuka onto the mat. We get a cover by Dakota and a near fall. Dakota then works onto the arm of Asuka. Bayley then makes the tag. The crowd at this point goes crazy for Bayley throughout the match. Sky makes the tag, and then Sky goes for the double knees on Asuka in the corner. We get a cover into near fall, and then Bayley makes the tag. Alexa then makes the tag as well. Dakota at this point is legal, and then Bayley's on the outside. Then after that, Alexa takes her out to the outside with a cannonball. But Dakota then drives Alexa with the dropkick onto the barricade. Then Dakota and Alexa are in the ring. We get a suplex by Dakota. We get a cover and a near fall. Dakota is in control over Alexa. She sends Bliss into the corner, drives her foot onto the neck of Alexa Bliss after that. Sky makes the tag, but then Sky tries to send Alexa Bliss into the corner, but Alexa holds on. Both Alexa and Iyo Sky exchange shots. Then Sky manages to drive Alexa headfirst onto the turnbuckle. Then she proceeds to drive Alexa face first to the mat. We get a cover by Iyo Sky and a near fall. Then Dakota makes the tag after that. Sky makes the tag once again. She continues to be in control over Alexa Bliss. At this point, the fans are still chanting Bayley's song, even though she wasn't the legal woman. So it's getting Bayley pissed off in kayfabe, of course. Dakota then tags in, but Alexa goes for the sunset flip powerbomb, not knowing that Iyo Sky wasn't legal. Dakota then takes out Alexa, but then Dakota sends Bayley, sends Bayley on Alexa, but then Bayley gets taken to the outside. Bliss then goes for the Hurricane Rana on Dakota. Then after that, Bianca then tries to tag in, but then Bianca gets taken to the outside by Bayley. Then she proceeds to drive Bianca to the barricade. Asuka at this point makes the tag. She goes to the top, but then Iyo comes in, and then we get a shoulder tackle by Bayley. Sky goes for the hip attack as well. Then we get repeated strikes by Asuka on Iyo Sky, followed by a German suplex. Then she goes for the sliding kick, but then we get a cover by Asuka on Iyo and a near fall when the heels make the save. Bayley at this point goes for the belly-to-belly suplex on Alexa Bliss after that. Iyo then goes for the kick onto the side of the head of Asuka. Bayley then makes the tag, but then Iyo comes in. Iyo then goes for the sunset flip, but Asuka rolls back up, but Bayley goes for the sliding lariat. After that, we get a cover by Bayley and a near fall. Asuka then goes for the code breaker on Bayley. Bianca makes the tag. We get repeated clotheslines followed by a dropkick. She drives her repeatedly into the corner, but then Bianca then hits the spine buster, followed by the standing moonsault. We get a cover by Bianca and a near fall, but then Bayley then tags Dakota. We get a back elbow by Bianca. Bianca then takes Bayley to the top, but then Dakota enters the fray. Bianca then escapes, but then she sends Dakota to the outside along with Iyo Sky. Then after that, Bayley then takes Bianca, but Alexa and Asuka come up. We get a double superplex on Bayley by Asuka and Alexa off the top. Then after that, everybody is on the outside. Sky then goes for the springboard moonsault. Then at this point, Bianca rolls up Dakota in the ring, but we get a near fall. She picks up Dakota, but Dakota escapes. Dakota is on the top, but then Bianca picks up Dakota, but Sky comes in and gets taken out. Bianca then goes for the fall-away slam, but Bianca then drags Dakota. Dakota wants to go for the scorpion kick, but Bianca hits the powerbomb instead. After that, Bianca goes to the top. She misses, and then Dakota goes for the scorpion kick, but then Dakota misses the running boot. Then Bianca picks up Dakota, but Iyo enters the fray. Bayley then pulls the hair of Bianca, then Dakota hits the boot. Iyo makes the tag and goes to the top. She goes for the rose plant on Bianca, followed by a moonsault by Iyo Sky. We get a cover, and Bayley pins the Raw Women's Champion Bianca Belair in the center of the ring, and Damage Control officially get the win. Overall thoughts on this opening women's match. This opening women's match was absolutely fantastic in my opinion. I definitely enjoyed the match. Again, the crowd definitely was one of the reasons why I enjoyed the match, because of the fact that they were singing Bayley's song when she was once a babyface. That was like literally the song that everybody sang. And, you know, I loved, you know, the interactions that Bayley had with the audience. It was fantastic. But having Bayley pin Bianca was definitely the right call, in my opinion, to make, because it goes to show you that they're definitely going to put the strap on Bayley in the near future, and it's going to happen. But overall, you know, Iyo Sky and Dakota Kai absolutely delivered as well. You know, that finish was fantastic as well. But, you know, of course, we can't talk about Iyo Sky and Dakota Kai without talking about the women's tag team tournament. If you guys do not recall, if you guys not remember, I believe it was this past May when Sasha Banks and Naomi walked out of the WWE, and they basically placed the Women's Tag Team Championships on Johnny Ace's desk, and rightfully so, considering the fact that they didn't want to support shit creative, and they basically had no focus. Right after that, Michael Cole on commentary stated that Sasha Banks and Naomi let us all down and announced that there was going to be a tournament for the Women's Tag Team Championships. Now, granted, well, I shouldn't say granted. After that, we waited a full month. While Vince McMahon was still in charge, this was like weeks after Michael Cole even announced the tournament. Michael Cole, like, you know, once they announced the tournament, There was no focus at all on the women's tag team championships. These people had absolutely no plans for the tournament, which then leads us to, of course, Vince McMahon stepping down and, of course, Triple H taking over. One of his first call to actions was do and announce the women's tag team tournament that Vince McMahon announced prior but had no action on because they had no direction for it. So what are, in my opinion, the pros and cons of the women's tag team championship tournament? The pros of the women's tag team tournament was the fact that it gives somewhat of a focus to the women's tag team championships, realistically, and it gives the women more TV time. And I will admit this, even though the women's tag team championship tournament that happened this year, well, not this year or these past couple of weeks, even though it really didn't interest me a lot as it should have, I should say, I will say if you compare this tournament to the Queen's Crown tournament, the length of the matches were much longer than the matches that the Queen's Crown tournament had. Because if you watch the Queen's Crown tournament, almost all of the women's matches that happened there were like 2 minutes long, and WWE basically put no focus on that tournament. But the cons are, of course, you had no real tag teams, and realistically, the tournament really did not make me care about the women's tag team championships. And another thing that really got me angry was the outcome in the end, because, of course, you had, in the finals, you had Dakota Kai and Iyo Sky taking on Aaliyah and Raquel Rodriguez, a.k.a. Raquel Gonzalez, and you had literally, I believe it was Aaliyah pinning Dakota Kai in the center of the ring, which led to Aaliyah and Raquel Rodriguez winning the tag team championships, which were really dumb in my opinion. That was a really dumb decision in my opinion, considering the fact that those tag team titles were definitely made for women like Iyo Sky and Dakota Kai, but they didn't get that. I don't understand why they did that, but it is what it is. But again, the outcome in the end, really, I just did not enjoy at all whatsoever, and I felt like it was kind of lackluster. And again, even now, I just do not care about the women's tag team tournament because of the fact that, number one, everybody was speculating that realistically the catalyst of this whole tournament was going to be Sasha Banks and Naomi returning. And right after Aaliyah and Raquel Rodriguez won those titles, we had nothing. Even now, we have nothing regarding Sasha Banks and Naomi. We do not even know if they're going to be returning to the WWE. Now, out of AEW and the WWE, do I see them returning to the WWE most likely? Yeah, AEW right now is less of an option. But again, having to put the titles on Aaliyah and Raquel was a dumb decision, and I would have rather have them put the titles on Iyo and Dakota. That's just me. But, that's just my small thoughts on the women's tag team tournament. But yeah, let's go on with Clash at the Castle. In our next match, we have a banger of a match. And I mean a freaking banger of a match. Of course, I am talking about Sheamus versus Gunther for the Intercontinental Championship. This match was by far the best match of the entire show. And I mean that wholeheartedly. This was the best match of the entire show because of the fact that, Sheamus after this match got super over, but not only got super over, looked stronger than ever. They made Sheamus look like $1 million on this match. And this was one of those matches that fans like me and a lot of other fans were definitely hyped about when WWE first announced this match. And when Sheamus, I believe, what did he win? It was like, what was it? I completely forgot, but he won something that granted him this Intercontinental Championship opportunity. But this match was, again, the best match at Clash at the Castle because of the ruthlessness, intensity, and the violence that you saw in this match. This match absolutely made Clash at the Castle. Years from now, what people are going to be talking about when it comes to Clash at the Castle is not going to be realistically Drew McIntyre versus Roman Reigns. Everybody's going to be like, bro, Sheamus versus Gunther was like the best match on the entire card, bar none. And Sheamus, again, looked stronger than ever. And I applaud WWE for making Sheamus look extremely strong, because now he is super over. If you guys did not watch SmackDown, and if you guys watched the match between the Brawling Brutes and Imperium, holy shit. Every time when Sheamus and Gunther were face-to-face with one another, the crowd would start to clap and give a standing ovation. That's how special this match was. And I applaud WWE for literally going straight out there and pulling out a banger of a match, because this match definitely made Clash of the Castle what it was. It was a fantastic match in my opinion. But yeah, let's talk about the match. Of course, Imperium is back. Of course, for the past couple of months, Walter, that was his original name. Gunther was with Ludwig Kaiser. Holy crap, these people on the main roster deadass be making some weird ass name. Ludwig Kaiser is now, of course, he was a former member of Imperium as well, but now they brought in Giovanni Vinci. Of course, he was a former member of Imperium, and they completely repackaged him on NXT, which I remember I was watching NXT Heatwave, and I didn't realize that he was formerly part of Imperium, because again, I didn't really watch a lot of NXT, but I saw that and I was like, oh shit, he was a part of Imperium, because somebody told me that on Twitter, which was absolutely hilarious, because these gimmick changes on NXT, again, I don't watch NXT, because NXT, in my opinion, to me, it's not really my cup of tea. That's just me. But we got Imperium back, and of course, Imperium and the Brawling Brutes. Of course, the Brawling Brutes consisting of Sheamus, Pete Dunne, and of course, Rich Holland, all brawl with Imperium. They all brawl with Imperium, and once they all brawl, Sheamus and Gunther are literally staring at each other. They're staring at each other throughout the entirety of this entire brawl between both groups. So after this, Butch goes for a crazy-ass moonsault. Both fight it out, and then Gunther goes for an overhead chop into the corner. After that, Gunther goes for the side headlock. We get a shoulder tackle by Gunther, followed by a big boot. Sheamus then regains control. Both exchange shots. Then we get a couple of kicks by Sheamus. Sheamus then takes Gunther to the apron and tries to go for the 10 beats of the bow ring. After that, Gunther escapes. Both are on the outside, but then Gunther gets taken to the steel steps. After that, he takes Gunther to the ring. Sheamus wraps his arm around the ring, but then Gunther hits a right. And one of the things that made this match so special was the chops, man. Gunther, or Walter, is known for his fucking crazy-ass chops, and Sheamus really took those chops back to Gunther. That's how good this match was, man. Everybody's going to be remembering this match for the chops that we saw on this show, or on this match. Sheamus Gunther hits a right, and then Sheamus hits a right of his own. Gunther goes for an overhead chop into the corner. Sheamus then goes to the top, but then Gunther hits a chop, taking him to the outside. Sheamus and Gunther are in the ring. At this point, both exchange shots. Sheamus then gets taken to the mat. Gunther then goes for a boot and then hits another boot. Gunther then applies the Boston Crab. After that, Gunther transitions into the crossface. We get repeated chops onto the back of Sheamus. Both fight it out at this point. Both then exchange shots. We get a chop by Gunther taking down Sheamus, but then Sheamus holds on to Gunther's arm and fights back. At this point, Sheamus' chest is flat out full of scars. Gunther then drives him into the corner. Sheamus then gets taken to the outside, but then Gunther slams Sheamus onto the floor. He throws him over the announce table, but then Sheamus then gets Gunther and hits repeated shots onto the chest. Gunther then goes to the ring, and then we get a clothesline by Sheamus, and then Sheamus manages to get the 10 beats of the bow ring. After that, Gunther then goes to the crowd, but then Sheamus comes in and then goes for the 10 beats once again on Gunther. Gunther then goes back into the ring, but then Sheamus goes to the top. He drives the knees on Gunther, but then Sheamus picks up Gunther, but then Gunther escapes. Sheamus goes for a right, but then Gunther goes for a chop. After that, both go for their respective exchanges. We get a German suplex by Gunther, followed by a crazy-ass chop. But then Sheamus goes for a furious knee. And then when I'm talking about a furious knee, I mean a legit furious knee. I mean, you heard that knee like crazy. We get a cover by Sheamus and a near fall. Gunther then fights back. He applies a sleeper on Sheamus, but then picks up Sheamus, but escapes. Sheamus then picks up Gunther instead and goes for the white noise. After that, we get a cover and a near fall. At this point, the crowd gets up on their feet. They get up on their feet, and then Sheamus misses the bro kick. Then that leads Gunther for the advantage and goes for a waistlock. Sheamus once again escapes Gunther. Dropkick by Gunther. Gunther then goes for the powerbomb. Gunther then stops onto the tailbone of Sheamus. After that, Gunther goes to the top. We get repeated chops by Sheamus. At this point, Sheamus goes for a kick, and then Sheamus takes Gunther for a move on. Well, he basically had him up on his shoulders. Sheamus then tries to hit the bro kick. After that, Sheamus then sells his back, and after he sells his back, what happens after that? Gunther actually gains the advantage and manages to hit the powerbomb, followed by his furious fucking lariat. We get a cover, and Gunther retains the IC championship in a fantastic match, probably considered the best match in the entire card. This match was absolutely fantastic, and again, it's going to be one of those matches that's going to be remembered for years to come, in my opinion. And now, I may be over-exaggerating with that statement, but I genuinely believe that, because everybody's going to be like, look, Clash at the Castle was great, but I hated the fact that, Drew lost to Roman Reigns. But god damn it, that Sheamus versus Gunther match definitely made the show what it was. And that's what I genuinely believe. Gunther and Sheamus was an absolutely barn burner banger of a fucking match that, we're definitely going to be getting a rematch between these two. And they kind of, in a way, teased it on SmackDown 2 nights ago. Of course, we had the 6-man tag team match with the Brawling Brutes and Imperium. And every time, as I've stated earlier, every time when Sheamus and Gunther went face-to-face and didn't even touch each other, the crowd got on their feet. There's no way that WWE does not book a rematch with these two. I genuinely believe, since Extreme Rules is next month, I see them booking the rematch for the Intercontinental Championship. That's just my opinion, but overall, Gunther and Sheamus was definitely the best match of the entire night. All right, we now got Liv Morgan versus Shayna Baszler for the SmackDown Women's Championship. I'm going to be quite honest with one of you guys. This was definitely the weakest match in the entire card. It was definitely going to be really difficult for WWE or anybody to follow up on that Sheamus versus Gunther match. Realistically, there's no way to follow up on it. It was going to be very tough for the next match. And this match, unfortunately, in my opinion, did not deliver. Now, granted, I did not like the fact that Liv Morgan won. In my opinion, look, Liv Morgan is great, but to me, my biggest issue with Liv Morgan is I don't really believe in her enough as a champion. That's just my opinion. All the Liv stands are now going to go at me. But I'm not really that big of a fan of Liv Morgan as champion, and she's not really, to me, as believable as a champion. Shayna Baszler is definitely believable as a champion, and I believe that Shayna Baszler should have won, but we're going to have to wait and see what they do in the future. So this match was pretty short. It was not really that long. Liv Morgan did get the win. We get a roll-up by Liv. Shayna then applies the Karavuta clutch. Liv escapes with the roll-up, but then Liv escapes and applies the Karavuta clutch once again. Well, actually, no. Liv actually goes for that Shayna's move. Liv goes for the armbar. We get a roll-up and a near fall by Liv. At this point, Liv goes for the Hurricane Rana, followed by a shotgun dropkick. Then she goes for a shotgun dropkick onto the back of Shayna Baszler. We get a running knee by Liv into the corner. Shayna then escapes and runs into a boot. After that, Liv is on the middle rope trying to do somewhat of a springboard, but Shayna catches the arm of Liv and takes her to the outside. Shayna then sends Liv arm first to the barricade. Liv then takes her back into the ring. We get a cover by Shayna and a near fall. We get repeated rights by Shayna, but then at this point, Shayna is in control. Shayna then continues to work onto the injured arm of Liv. Liv then fights back, but then Liv runs into a clothesline by Shayna Baszler. We get a cover into near fall, but then Shayna goes for the German suplex. Then she goes for a kick on Liv Morgan. We get a cover and a near fall. Shayna then goes for a kick onto the arm of Morgan. After that, Shayna then applies the arm submission, but then Liv escapes, kicking Shayna. Then Shayna herself misses a kick. After that, Liv goes for the jawbreaker, but then Liv goes to the top and hits a shotgun dropkick, knocking Shayna and herself down to the mat. Liv then gets up and screams and goes after Shayna Baszler. Liv goes for the enziguri. After that, Liv then drops Shayna face first. We get a cover by Liv Morgan and a near fall. Liv later goes to the top, but then lands into a knee by Shayna Baszler. We get a cover into near fall. Liv then tries to apply the triangle submission on Shayna, but then transitions into an armbar. We get a roll-up by Shayna and a near fall, but then Liv still has the arm bar applied. Shayna then escapes and hits repeated stomps onto the injured arm of Liv. Then she goes for the gut-wrench suplex on Liv, dropping her face first to the mat, followed by a furious knee. We get a cover by Shayna and a near fall. Liv is on the top. Shayna then also comes to the top, but then Liv fights off Shayna, then escapes. After that, she drives the left arm of Shayna onto the middle rope. Then Liv goes for the sunset flip powerbomb, but then we get a cover and a near fall, and immediately Shayna applies the Karabuta clutch on Liv after she kicks out. Then Liv makes it to the bottom rope, but then Shayna applies the Karabuta clutch again, but then Liv transitions and has Shayna shoulders down. We get a near fall. Then Shayna misses a running kick, but then Liv goes for the code breaker, followed by the Oblivion, which leads to the cover. 1, 2, 3. Liv Morgan beats Shayna Baszler and retains the SmackDown Women's Championship. Again, this was definitely the weakest match on the entire card, in my opinion at least. I genuinely believe that because of the fact that, again, any match was going to be very difficult to follow up on that Sheamus versus Gunther match. And realistically, I feel like the wrong woman won. I genuinely believe that Shayna just should have won that title because, again, Liv Morgan to me is not a believable champion. But we're going to have to wait and see what they do. Of course, they're doing the storyline with Ronda Rousey and, of course, her being, suspended. But recently her suspension got lifted. So we're going to have to wait and see what happens in the future. I believe Ronda Rousey did win the, what was it? The 5-pack, 6-pack challenge with the women 2 nights ago on SmackDown. And she will face Liv Morgan at the Extreme Rules pay-per-view, which I genuinely see Ronda Rousey beating Liv Morgan once again. I just see, well, not beating her once again, just beating her because, of course, at SummerSlam, Liv Morgan beat Ronda Rousey in controversial fashion. Here's another match that I absolutely enjoyed, man. This match was absolutely fantastic, 100%, and that is, of course, Edge and Rey Mysterio taking on the Judgment Day, consisting of Finn Balor and Damian Priest. This match was amazing. Of course, throughout these past couple weeks, Rhea Ripley has been going after Dominic, and everybody online has been making memes and jokes about how Dominic is now a man because Rhea Ripley keeps attacking him, which is absolutely hilarious. But overall, man, this match was fantastic. Edge and Rey looked great. Of course, they were former tag team champions on SmackDown during the SmackDown 6 era. I believe they were tag team champions, but this was during the SmackDown 6 era in 2002. That was when SmackDown was actually really good and like Raw was like doing dog shit. It was not like dog shit, but like SmackDown was clearly the better show. But we had Edge and Rey Mysterio taking on the Judgment Day. Of course, I'm absolutely loving this feud that they're doing with the Judgment Day and Edge and Rey Mysterio. And with the outcome that they did, at the end of the match, after the win that Rey and Edge had, and having Dominic turn on his father and Edge, I don't know, man. I absolutely love that finish. But I'll talk about that later on. Of course, once Edge makes his entrance, the fans in Cardiff, once again, I will state this once again, man, the fans in the UK are the best fans in the entire world. And once again, they have proved it with them singing Edge's theme. Now, granted, I believe last year in Madison Square Garden, they did the same thing, but like inside of a stadium, having fans sing your theme song, freaking awesome. So the fans are singing Edge's theme song. We get a standing ovation for both Rey Mysterio and Edge. Of course, two legends. I mean, the word legend is overused in WWE, but hey, man, they're legends. We get a standing ovation for them, of course. Rey and Balor start. Balor then sends Rey into the corner and then works on Rey into the corner. He sends Rey to the other corner and then hits a furious chop. After that, we had a kick to the knee of Balor. After that, Balor regains control with a sunset flip. After that, Rey hits a kick. Rey then goes for the Hurricane Rana. Priest then makes the tag. He points at Edge, and then the crowd at this point goes apeshit. Of course, Edge and Priest had their match in Toronto, and the crowd goes apeshit for both of these men. Edge makes the tag. We get a right hand by Priest. He throws Edge into the corner. He hits a furious elbow. Edge then fires back with repeated rights, and then Edge sends Priest into the corner. We get a kick by Edge on Balor. Judgment Day then gets taken to the outside. Rey then gets thrown by Edge onto the outside on Judgment Day. We get a kick by Rey on Priest. Then we get a springboard moonsault by Rey. Priest then counters with a modified Broken Arrow. Then he hits repeated rights on Rey, and then he sends Rey into the corner. We get a back elbow by Priest. Then after that, Balor makes the tag and he hits a stomp. We get a backbreaker by Balor, followed by a leg drop by Priest. Priest at this point is the legal man. After that, we get a cover and a near fall. We get a side headlock applied by Damian Priest. Then we get a kick by Rey, but then Priest goes for the pump kick. Then after that, Priest then spits in the face of Edge. So, of course, getting that heel heat. Balor then makes the tag. He kicks multiple kicks by Judgment Day on Rey Mysterio. Then we get a kick to the back of the neck of Rey by Finn Balor. Then we get a cover into near fall. Balor then goes for the Three Amigos. So right there, that's some heel heat right there. If you're going to do the Three Amigos, you're going to get some legit heat right there, especially if you're a heel. But then goes for a right. We get a side headlock by Balor. Rey escapes, but then Balor pulls back when Rey is trying to tag Edge. Balor then gets his knee taken out by Rey and then drops into the corner. Rey then tries to tag an Edge, but then Balor holds on. Rey then goes for the Enziguri. Then Priest then hits a boot on Edge, taking him to the outside. Balor then runs to Rey, but then gets thrown to the crowd. Then Rey is on the top of the barricade, but then Priest gets onto the top as well. But Rey escapes and then gets dropped on basically on his balls onto the barricade, which is hilarious. Then Rey comes back into the ring. He crawls back to tag Edge, but then Priest pulls him back. Then Edge finally makes the tag. He goes after both members of the Judgment Day. Then he hits the execution on Finn Balor. After that, after he hits the execution, Edge takes Priest to the outside. Rey then hits the senton on Priest. Edge then takes Balor to the middle rope. Edge goes for the 619 on Balor, but then Rey hits the frog splash off the top. But then we get a cover by Edge in a near fall when Damian Priest interferes. Priest is on the apron and takes Rey, but Edge spears Priest off the apron. At this point, we get holy shit chants by the crowd, so that was a fantastic spot in the entirety of the match. Rey then gets taken to the outside by Balor, but then Edge comes in. Balor then counters the spear with the sling blade. We get a shotgun dropkick by Balor on Edge. Balor then goes to the top, and then Dominic distracts the referee. Rey then hits the Hurricane Rana off the top. Rhea then takes Dominic out, proceeds to pick him up, but then Rey takes out Rhea. Then we get a Hurricane Rana by Rey on Balor, which leads Balor to the middle rope, but then Balor counters the 619 with a Furious Lariat, and this is where the shit gets intense. This is literally near the end of the match, but shit gets intense. I love the back and forth. So Balor counters the 619 with a Lariat. After that, Balor takes Rey onto the middle rope. Balor sets up the 619, but Dominic pulls him down. But Rey instead sends Balor to the middle rope. Rey proceeds to hit the 619 on Balor. And then Balor turns around. Edge immediately runs toward him to hit the spear. Cover. 1, 2, 3. Edge and Rey Mysterio win the match. Of course, this was a fantastic match. That finish, I love the combination with the 619 followed by the spear. Great finish. I absolutely loved it. But that was not really the true story of the match. No. Shit continues. So the babyfaces celebrate, right? So the babyfaces celebrate. And what happens is Dominic is kind of like far off from both Edge and Rey. And what happens is, Dominic looks like he's about to celebrate. But what happens? This motherfucker low blows the shit out of Edge. He low blows Edge, right? And, of course, throughout the past couple of weeks on Raw, building up towards this match, Dominic in storyline kind of had some sort of heat, or Edge has some sort of heat. Both of them, are not on good terms after a couple of weeks prior when Edge, by accident, speared Dominic in the end of that Raw episode, which was very Triple H. That was a very Triple H moment right there. But Dominic low blows Edge, and basically in retaliation. And then Rey is looking in shock. So he looks in shock, and what happens? Dominic, Rey Mysterio's own son, clotheslines, keyword, clotheslines, the shit out of his own father. This dude clotheslined him like Eddie Guerrero did back in 2005. That's how, everybody was making that comparison about how Dominic's clothesline on Rey Mysterio is so fucking similar to the clothesline that Eddie Guerrero did on Rey Mysterio on SmackDown back in 2005. It is that crazy. It's so similar. But it's official. Dominic now joins the Judgment Day, and I genuinely believe that it's definitely the best decision for Dominic, because realistically, when they first brought in Dominic to the main roster, of course, they had him tag team with his own father, all that stuff. But at some point, you got to break Dominic on his own. And I feel like him partnering with the Judgment Day, is going to help him more down the line. It's definitely going to elevate him more, in my opinion. But overall, this match and the aftermath of the match was absolutely fantastic. It was some of the craziest shit that I've ever seen. So we get the Clash at the Castle attendance record, and it's 62,296. So, of course, WWE, with their attendance records, they always do that. In our next match, we got Matt Riddle. Yes, Riddle got his name back, and he's now considered once again as Matt Riddle, takes on Seth freaking Rollins, which I don't know why they named it as an official name. Like, why would you call Seth Rollins Seth freaking Rollins? That's just a catchphrase, you know what I'm saying? Just call him Seth Rollins. Overall thoughts on this match. This match was fantastic. And the reason why I say that is because of the build towards this match. If you guys do not remember, this match, I believe, originally was supposed to happen at SummerSlam, but did not happen because they wanted to build this match for the Raw. And, of course, they had Riddle call out. I believe Riddle called out Seth Rollins at SummerSlam, which led to the brawl between the two. And then, of course, fast forward to the go-home Raw before this particular pay-per-view, you had a one-on-one interview, simulcast of some sort, with both Riddle and Seth Rollins. And I love what they did here. So we go to commercial break after that segment. And then once we go to commercial break, they showed extra clips on what happened after, the segment finished. And then you had Seth Rollins basically go personal. Actually, no. In the interview, Riddle was the first one to go personal. Talks about how Becky was the only man in his entire family. And then Seth Rollins is like, you want to talk about my family? Let's talk about your family. Oh, right, you don't got a family because your wife let you with your kids and they don't want to see your bitch ass anymore. And that led to Riddle to go on a fucking crazy tirade. I loved that. Everything that we saw on that particular segment on Raw, on the go-home Raw before Clash at the Castle, absolutely perfect. It was built to perfection. And, after that segment, you knew that these two men were absolutely going to deliver. And they absolutely did deliver. And, of course, Seth Rollins did get the win. But in the future, I wouldn't mind seeing these two men, wrestle once again, man. These guys had a fantastic chemistry in the ring. So the crowd is singing Seth Rollins' theme song, of course. Like, Seth Rollins throughout this entire year got super over with his theme song. Like, it's absolutely fucking insane. I love the new character. Well, I wouldn't necessarily say new because it's like a year old now. But, the visionary character is fantastic when it comes to Seth Rollins. So the match starts. Both go after one another. We get repeated kicks by Riddle into the corner. We get a couple of knees by Riddle. Riddle then continues to go for a couple of kicks in the corner. At this point, Riddle is arguing with the referee, of course. The main story of this entire match is, can Riddle overcome his emotions and actually beat Seth Rollins? That was basically the entirety. That was the whole story coming into this match. So he argues with the referee. Rollins goes to the outside, but then both brawl into the outside. At this point, they're back in the ring, but then Riddle goes for a series of gut-wrench suplexes. At this point, Rollins fires back. Rollins then goes for a clothesline. Rollins then follows up by a chop. Then Rollins runs into a knee, followed by a senton. After that, we get a cover into near fall. Riddle then drops, Rollins, then drops Riddle onto the top rope. But then Riddle then takes Rollins down with a triangle attempt. But then Rollins gets him up and drops Riddle over the apron, but then Rollins goes to the outside. At this point, Riddle is on the apron, but then he tries to hit the running kick. Then he goes to he hits the barricade bomb. Basically, it's a buckle bomb, but it's on a barricade on Riddle. Rollins then hits a suicide dive, sending Riddle to the top onto the announce table. Rollins then takes Riddle back in the ring. Rollins then goes for the clothesline after that. Riddle then proceeds to fight back, but then gets taken down with a back fucking elbow. Covered by Rollins into near fall, but then Rollins faces with the referee. So at this point, he argues with the referee, but then Riddle goes for a series of kicks on Seth Rollins. Covered by Rollins, or I should say roll up by Rollins, and a near fall. Rollins then proceeds to hit the super kick, but then we get a cover into near fall, followed by the Falcon Arrow. Cover into near fall once again. At this point, the crowd in Cardiff is singing Seth Rollins' theme. That's how over Seth Rollins is. So they're singing his theme song. Riddle goes to the top, and then after that, Rollins gets takes him down, but then Rollins goes to the middle rope. Then on the top, he tries to hit the inverted suplex, but then Rollins lost his balance. But then Rollins goes to the apron and kicks him onto the face, sending Riddle upside down. So after that, Rollins then goes for the double stomp, but then we get a cover by Rollins and a near fall. Rollins then gets Riddle up onto the top rope, but then Rollins goes to the top, but then Riddle fights Rollins off. Riddle then proceeds to hit a superplex, followed by a Falcon Arrow, but then Riddle counters him into a Fisherman Buster. We get repeated shots by Riddle, followed by a knee. Rollins then gets caught with an overhead throw. Rollins is on the outside. He proceeds to go for the Furious Kick. And then after that, Riddle he hits the floating bro off the second rope. Riddle then takes Rollins back into the ring, but then Rollins sets up Riddle for the pedigree attempt, but then Riddle hits the bro to sleep. Basically, it's his version of the GTS, which was great to see. Riddle then goes for the powerbomb, and then he follows up by a knee. We get a cover into near fall, and then Riddle goes to the top. He misses the floating bro when Rollins gets the knees up. Rollins then misses the stomp, but then Riddle catches Rollins with a triangle. Then Rollins gets up on his feet, but then Rollins at this point is fading. Then after that, Rollins kicks Riddle in order to escape. Then Rollins then tries to hit the Bro Derek, but then Rollins proceeds to go to the top. After that, he misses the Phoenix Splash attempt, but then Riddle follows up by an elbow. Rollins goes for a kick. Riddle then goes for a kick. Riddle follows up with the overhead kick after that. Rollins hits a right, but then we get a right onto the back of the neck of Riddle. Riddle then counters the stomp with the knee. Rollins then hits the enziguri, but then Riddle hits the German suplex. Riddle then powerbombs Rollins, but then gets on his feet and hits the pedigree. After that, we get a cover by Rollins and a near fall. That spot right there was absolutely fantastic. He literally goes for the powerbomb, but then Rollins gets up on his fucking feet and proceeds to hit the pedigree. That was like one of my favorite moments in the entire fucking match. Cover by Rollins and a near fall. At this point, Rollins is trying to get Riddle riled up, and then Rollins is literally screaming at Riddle like, bro, he's fucking nothing. Like, you're absolutely nothing. So what happens after that, he gets personal. Riddle then goes after Rollins. We get a kick by Rollins when Riddle is on the apron. Rollins then goes onto the middle rope and hits Randy Orton's DDT. After that, Rollins sets up the RKO, but then Riddle catches him in a choke. Then, after that, Riddle goes after Rollins, and then he goes for repeated kicks. And then he goes to the outside. He hits him headfirst repeatedly onto the announce table. So at this point, Riddle is getting so pissed off. Riddle goes back into the ring, but then Rollins catches him with the curb stomp. Then after that, Rollins is on the second rope and hits the stomp off the second rope. We get a cover, and Seth Rollins wins the match in a great outing between both Seth Rollins and Matt Riddle. It's no secret that these guys are going to wrestle once again. I mean, I thought the build-up for this match was absolutely fantastic, and I think that these guys are deserving of another match. Do I see a match happening possibly at Extreme Rules? We're going to have to wait and see. But overall, man, this match was absolutely great. I love the story aspect behind this match. Of course, since Rollins got super personal with Riddle, Riddle is, getting to that, and he's getting super pissed off to the point where he can't control his own emotions. I love the story that they're telling there, and it really gives Matt Riddle a different, vibe, which I absolutely enjoyed. But overall, man, this match was absolutely fantastic, and I hope these two men work together once again. All right, now we're going to be talking about the main event. The main event, that being Drew McIntyre versus Roman Reigns for the undisputed WWE Universal Heavyweight Championship, whatever the hell you want to call it. Those belts are not unified whatsoever because they're going to de-unify them in the near future. But we'll talk about that later on. It's no secret that Clash at the Castle was built around Drew McIntyre beating Roman Reigns for the undisputed title. And realistically, coming into this show, you, the viewer watching the pay-per-view, and myself, we're all thinking, hey, this is Drew's night and he is going to win the championship because of the fact that it's in front of his people. But that did not happen. Now, before we get on with all of this craziness, I would like to say this. The outcome of Drew not winning the championship I thought was kind of dumb. But at the same time, I feel like WWE is going to go a different route on dethroning Roman Reigns. And I'll talk about this later on after I go through the match. Because there's many different aspects behind this. And there's so many different questions as to what the hell is going to happen. And one of those questions are, how the hell is Roman going to lose both titles? How are they going to split the championships? Because it's a very difficult situation that the previous regime kind of got the WWE into. So we're going to talk about that after we're done with this match. But overall, this match was absolutely insane. I absolutely enjoyed the match. It's just the outcome. Now, granted, it's not like Drew immediately got buried because he basically lost due to interference of Solo Sikoa, who is, of course, the newest member of the Bloodline and is the younger brother of the Usos. But, again, let's talk about all this stuff let's talk about all the things that I would do when it comes to dethroning Roman Reigns, because I feel like it's pretty obvious now who the hell is going to dethrone Roman Reigns, and it's not really that hard. Spoiler alert, it's fucking Cody Rhodes. But I'll talk about that later on. Drew McIntyre comes back with Broken Dreams. Now, it's not the full theme of Broken Dreams. It's just like the prelude before his actual current theme song, but it was a nice little touch there. Of course, Drew McIntyre is super over in Cardiff. So the bell rings. The crowd, you can tell, is pro Drew McIntyre. You can really tell. Like, they are pro Drew McIntyre, and they really wanted Drew McIntyre to win. Realistically, everybody wanted Drew McIntyre to win this match. So the match starts. Both lock up. Both lock up once again. We get a side headlock by Roman, followed by a shoulder tackle, but the shoulder tackle was no-sold by Drew McIntyre. Roman proceeds to back out, and he walks around the apron. Of course, Roman does not have Paul Heyman, nor does he have the Usos. Paul Heyman, of course, is not there because he got F5'd by Brock Lesnar, and in kayfabe, he is still fucking injured. So Roman backs out and he walks around the apron. Roman comes back and recuperates. We get a bunch of waistlock switches by both wrestlers. We get a back elbow by Roman, followed by a side headlock by Roman. We get a shoulder tackle by Drew. At this point, once Drew McIntyre hit the shoulder tackle, there was a huge pop in the crowd. Roman at this point is regrouping on the outside. Roman then comes back in. We get a kick by Roman, but then Roman goes for the right hand. After that, we get a right by Roman. He hits repeated rights on Drew into the corner. Roman then goes to the second rope and hits repeated rights. After that, Drew ducks. Then he goes to the second rope himself and hits repeated rights. After that, Drew McIntyre clotheslines Roman, sending him to the outside. Drew at this point is in control over Roman Reigns. Then he sends Drew to the steel steps, but then Drew sees Karrion Kross on the front row and throws a water bottle at him. Now, Karrion Kross being in the front row was definitely eye-opening, especially what we have seen after SmackDown this past Friday, because of the fact that, of course, Karrion Kross basically caused a DQ and choked the shit out of Drew McIntyre. So most likely, the next match is going to be Drew McIntyre. Drew McIntyre's next match is going to be up against Karrion Kross. But Karrion Kross really did not do anything in this match, which everybody expected him to do something in this match, but we did not see anything of there. All we saw was Karrion Kross just throwing a water bottle at Drew McIntyre. Roman then takes advantage and hits a right hand. Then Roman sends Drew over to the post. Roman goes back in the ring, and then Drew gets back into the ring to the count of 9. Roman then goes for a series of kicks, followed by a series of repeated rights. We get a cover by Roman and a kick out by Drew. Roman then goes for repeated clotheslines into the corner on Drew. Roman then sends Drew shoulder first onto the ring post. Drew goes back into the apron. Roman, with the right, but then Drew fights back. Then he hangs up Roman onto the top rope. Then Roman goes for the jumping clothesline in the ring. Roman then goes for the side headlock, but then Drew fights back, but Roman hits a boot on Drew after that. We get a cover by Roman and a near fall. Drew then goes for repeated chops on Roman, but then Roman reverses Drew and throws Drew back into the corner. Then McIntyre fights back with a couple of chops. Roman then goes for repeated rights once again, but then Roman picks up Drew. Drew then picks him up, but then both reverse and trying to pick each other up. But then what happens is Roman goes for repeated stomps on Drew. Then Roman requests the microphone. And you know Roman Reigns, once he gets a microphone, he's going to go off. And he screams on the microphone, telling Cardiff to acknowledge him. And what happens is you get a bunch of boos by the crowd in Cardiff. So after that, Roman turns around and gets hit with the headbutt by Drew. But then at this point, both are knocked down. Both exchange shots. Roman goes for a kick to the midsection. Drew then gets sent to the corner, but then fires back with the clothesline. He proceeds to hit the belly-to-belly throw, followed by another belly-to-belly throw. Then he goes for another one. Drew then hits the neckbreaker, but then Drew clotheslines Roman into the corner. At this point, Roman is on the top rope. Drew goes to the top, but then Roman tries to block. Roman finally catches Drew McIntyre, but then he hits a series of rights on the top. Drew pulls the hair of Roman, but then Roman continues to go for the right hand. Then after that, Drew is upside down, but then comes back and hits the belly-to-belly throw, once again taking Roman down to the mat. He sets up the Claymore kick, but then Roman goes to the outside. Roman then goes for a right onto the outside, and then he takes Drew back into the ring. Drew then hits a kick. He tries to hit the Future Shock DDT, but then Roman hits a right. Drew then goes for the spine buster, followed by the jackknife pin attempt. Drew then picks up Roman, but then Roman escapes. Drew fires with a back elbow, but then Roman hits the rock bottom. After that, we get a cover engineer fall. Roman at this point is up on his feet. Roman then sets up the Superman punch, but then Drew counters into the Future Shock DDT. Roman then counters the Claymore kick with the Superman punch, but then we get a cover and a near fall. At this point, Roman is up on his feet once again. Roman is taunting the crowd at this point. He tries to hit the spear, but then Drew hits the kick. Roman then runs the ropes for the spear. Then after that, we get a cover and a close-ass near fall. After that, Drew then gets caught into the guillotine by Roman, but then Drew drives him into the corner, but it isn't enough for Roman to apply the guillotine once again. At this point, Drew is still on his feet, but then Drew drives him into the corner once again. Then he sends Roman shoulder first to the ring post. After that, Roman is on the outside. Drew drives Roman to the barricade, but then Drew immediately sends Roman back into the ring. He tries to set up the Claymore, but instead, Roman hits the spear when Drew tries to hit the Claymore. So that was a crazy-ass counter after there, and the crowd goes apeshit. What happens? We get a cover and a near fall. At this point, both men are down. Roman argues with the referee. Drew hits a Claymore from behind, and Roman knocks out the referee as well. But then, what happens? Austin Theory comes out, and at this point, everybody's thinking, holy shit, this motherfucker is going to cash in the Money in the Bank. What happens? So, Austin Theory runs to the ring, and he tries to cash in his contract. Of course, he's running with the referee. And all of a sudden, Tyson Fury, who is on the front, knocks the shit out of Theory. After that, Roman has a chair, since the referee is down, so he basically can do whatever the fuck he wants. So then, Drew, when Roman has the chair, Drew actually hits the Claymore kick. After that, we get a cover and a near fall. Both Roman and Drew at this point exchange shots. Then both fight it out. Roman then hits the Superman punch, but then Drew fires back with the Glasgow kiss. After that, Drew hits the spear on Reigns. Yes, he hit his own move. We get a cover and a near fall when Solo Sikoa, or I should say Drew hits the Claymore on Reigns, my dumbass. I said he hits the spear, his own move. No, I messed up my notes right there. Drew hits the Claymore. We get a cover and a near fall when Solo Sikoa interferes and drags the referee out. And after that, Roman Reigns hits the spear, cover, 1, 2, 3. Roman wins. It's all over for Drew McIntyre. And of course, the newest member of the Bloodline is revealed to be Solo Sikoa. So there was definitely a bunch of mixed reactions because of this finish. And I understand the mixed reactions. The reason why I understand the mixed reactions is because of the fact that Clash at the Castle, this whole pay-per-view, was built around Drew McIntyre beating Roman Reigns for the title. Roman Reigns, realistically, if there was any chance for Roman Reigns to drop the championship, it was realistically this night. And WWE did not do that. But that also beats the question, who should beat Roman Reigns for the Undisputed Universal title? There's a lot of questions behind this because, again, Clash at the Castle realistically should have been the night in which Drew McIntyre dethroned Roman Reigns, but WWE didn't do that and instead went into another direction with having Solo Sikoa actually cost Drew McIntyre the entire match. And also, if you guys actually watch SmackDown and the ending of SmackDown, it looks like Karrion Kross is going to be feuding with Drew McIntyre for the foreseeable future. Now, what does this do with Roman Reigns? Now, realistically, there is one person or two people that come to my mind that should dethrone Roman Reigns. It's Karrion Kross or Cody Rhodes, in my opinion. It's one of those two guys, realistically, that should dethrone Roman Reigns. Karrion Kross, the reason why I say Karrion Kross is because of the fact that right now, of course, Karrion Kross is on this big return, and they're banking high on Karrion Kross, and he's going to be a very important part on the main event scene on the SmackDown brand. So that is one of the main reasons why I choose Karrion Kross. And Cody Rhodes is definitely the most obvious choice of everything. The reason why I say Cody Rhodes is because of the fact that what was the main reason why Cody Rhodes wanted to come back to the WWE? Because he wanted to be a main eventer. He wanted to be a world champion. Because if he had stayed in AEW, realistically, he wouldn't have done a lot in AEW. He would have been doing the exact same things he has done. And putting that stipulation in that match against Jericho back in 2019 did not help at all for Cody either. So, again, Cody Rhodes is most likely the most logical choice to beat Roman Reigns. But, again, it all depends on what are WWE's plans for WrestleMania, because the rumored main event for WrestleMania, because keep in mind, WrestleMania is going to be in Hollywood next year. They're going to be in Hollywood, California. These people, WWE is banking high on the fact that most likely the main event for WrestleMania is going to be The Rock versus Roman Reigns. But if you really think about it, and hopefully a bunch of fans agree with me with this, Rock versus Roman does not need the championship. Realistically, Rock versus Roman does not need the championship. Rock versus Roman sells itself. That match sells itself, and you will get a lot of people watching that shit. So I don't think they're going to, have the title involved. But again, if you are going to have Rock versus Roman without the championship, how are you going to have Roman Reigns drop those titles? Because another thing you have to keep in mind is the fact that the networks want exclusivity. They want exclusivity of their own stars and their own championships. We've been hearing reports that, Fox wants this or NBC Universal wants this, because keep in mind, WWE has two separate television deals. So that is another question that we also need to keep in mind. So again, really the two people that I come to mind when it comes to having Roman Reigns drop those titles are either Karrion Kross or Cody Rhodes. One of those two guys. But again, if you're not going to have Roman versus Rock as well, realistically, the true main event is going to be Cody Rhodes versus Roman Reigns. But that is only if they are not going to get Rock versus Roman and Rock can't be available. But again, we do not know what the plans are. Most likely, Roman is going to be dropping those titles. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. We just need to know when he's going to be dropping those titles. And when he drops those titles, they are going to be split up. It's not going to be one championship, considering the fact that the networks, again, want exclusivity. So yeah, that was my WWE Clash at the Castle pay-per-view review. Overall thoughts on this show. I thought this show was absolutely fantastic. It was a great show overall. I definitely enjoyed what I watched. Now, granted, the finish of that match was kind of iffy, in my opinion, considering the fact that Drew realistically should have won the championship, but it didn't happen. I think WWE has bigger plans involved for Roman Reigns to drop that title. But aside from that, realistically, Clash at the Castle was an amazing show. I absolutely enjoyed the show for what it was. Again, 6 matches on this card, and WWE focused a lot on quality over quantity, and WWE is going to be focusing on that in the near future as well. But yeah, that was my WWE Clash at the Castle review. Please like, subscribe, comment down below, push that bell for notifications, and be on the lookout for more videos right here on the Wrestle Havoc podcast on YouTube. Again, if you guys want to check out the Wrestle Havoc podcast in audio platforms, it's available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, and Google Podcasts. So if you guys want to check out the podcast in audio platforms, it's available on all of those platforms. The link will be in the description below. But as always, it is Flamin' Ricky Derez from the Wrestle Havoc podcast, signing out.